Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's OpenCities Planner users webinar. It's so nice that we can see a lot of you that made it and join our call. To begin with, we are going to have a short introduction, as always, in our agenda and what we are having for you today. Then we will move on with our two guest presenters of the day. I will introduce you shortly. Then we will move on with our OpenCities Planner product news. My colleague Irma Ali, our product designer, will give you an overview on our latest news. And then we have our Q&A session. And I will ask you during the presentation from our guest presenters or us, you can leave all your questions in the chat and we will address all of them by the end. Before moving to our two guest presenters of the day, let me remind you that, as always, you can stay connected to us. You can always visit the forum and you can find every OpenCities Planner related questions, issues, suggestions, and answers from the whole community. You can always visit our blog and find our OpenCities Planner users newsletter, but also all the blog post updates that we have. And the most important thing, as you know of, is like our support direct button in the editor interface. And we also have an update for you that we will share with you today as well. It was also stated in the newsletter. So without further ado, let me introduce you our two guest presenters of the day and their exciting use cases that we have for you. Our first guest presenter comes from Greenland, is Thomas Gaarde Madsen, and he's the head of the Department of Planning in the Ministry of Finance and Equality in Greenland. And he's going to present their 3D model of Greenland's ice-free terrain. And then we will move on to Michael O'Donnell. He's a station officer from the City of Dublin in the Fire Brigade, and he's going to present their D-TER Digital Twin for emergency response. So before moving on, thank you both for joining and accepted our invitation as guest presenters. And it will be very interesting for us and for our users to hear about your use cases. So Thomas, you can start your presentation and you can share your screen.
Yes, my name is Thomas and I'm the head of planning here in the Ministry of Finance and Equality in Greenland. And we are so fortunate that we have made a 3D model of Greenland. And I will give you a presentation here, how we see the potential in 3D in the planning and use for the people of Greenland. I'll have a very short introduction to Greenland. I think you all heard of Greenland, I hope, but there's a lot of mistakes sometimes about Greenland, so I'll just give you a short introduction there. I'll tell a little bit about the national strategy of geodata that lies underneath all of the work with the 3D model, and then we'll go to the 3D model and I'll tell you a little bit about the 3D potentials as we see them. The Inuits are like an indigenous people that are very closely related to nature. And actually, as I'm married to an Inuit, and as I see, they are very 3D in their mindset, to get around in nature. And what you see here is actually an old, you can see in 1881. This is like a carved 3D model that an expedition, that was a local Inuit who carved that for one of the expeditions in east of Greenland. So just to say that the Greenlanders actually, their mindset is very set on 3D. This is my minister, I just took it with us. And what we are doing here in the National Planning Office is also working with sustainability and a lot of different stuff. So you can say it's a very strategic work that we are doing, but also sometimes very concrete. We're doing geodata and so on. So what you see, this is Greenland superimposed to Europe, and as you can see, it's a fairly large country, and we only 56,000 inhabitants, and we live very spread out to the coast. So you can see we are the 12th largest country in the world, and this is just some information. I'll just not go through all of them. You can see we are like 20,000 sled dogs. This is I've been living in the north, and this is very nice to have to go around like this on the ice. But you know, with the climate change, we are diminishing, so there's less lead dogs, unfortunately. And we are both, you know, a traditional society where we hunters that live as hunters, but we are also a modern society. You know, I live in a city and in a flat and so on and so forth. So you can see there, people are also very IT minded and on the internet and so on. What we've been doing before we got introduced to the 3D world of Bentley, we've had a long work with the strategy of geodata. We see a lot of potential when we are such a huge country where people are far from each other. We think it's very important for us to do some digitization, and we have this vision for the geodata. We have worked a lot of some principles, and that's actually very important for us, and that's how we, you know, stay tuned in onto the task ahead of us. And some of the principles when we work with geodata is coherence. We want a user-centered approach and openness. And so when we're doing geodata, we actually have some strategic goals we're trying to fulfill. That's something with the political, on the first goal is better decision making for the politicians. We also want growth for the country. We want it to be more easy to make some digitization. We actually work a lot on the next generation with learning. So we think that geodata should be, you know, introduced to the next generation, all the young people. And then sustainable development, we will try to have geodata and to fulfill the sustainable goals, for instance. So now I'll just go to, you can see these kids, maybe they had a lot of sodas to drink, but they're very happy here. But now we'll go to the 3D model. And we're so fortunate that we ran into, this is near us in Denmark, that has helped us with this model. And before the model, there's a lot of work, you know. We've had the chance to get some new maps of Greenland, and these slides, you know, all the data was there, so it could be fairly easy done. Actually, we started the work in November, I think, so it has been a quick journey, but a very inspiring one. So now in my presentation, I'll just fly around a little bit here on this west coast. You know, Greenland is huge, and you're very welcome. If you go to NunaGIS, we can send you the link and so on. You can go and have a look on Greenland for yourself. You can see everything on Greenland, actually. So now I'm going to just go down some places, and then you can see some of the potentials we see with this 3D model. So we'll start now. Right now, I'm sitting down here in the capital of Nuuk. So let's fly to Nuuk. So here you have Nuuk, and as you can see, we also have started some 3D model. And my position is actually, where you see the right here. I'm sitting here, and it's early morning, and it's actually the national day here, so there's nobody on the street. Everybody's home. And I like to sit early in the morning, so that's okay. So for Nuuk, there's a lot of ambition here. This is this is a large city in Greenland. For you guys, I don't think it's large. It's 19,000 people. But as we see, we want to be some sort of Arctic capital. The municipality is quite ambitious, and what we also, these years, we are doing a lot of work on infrastructure. As you can see now, I'm flying to the Nuuk airport. This is what we're gonna have in like next year. We'll have this new huge airstrip, so that we can be a little bit better connected to the rest of the world. So this is a model, and this is very interesting. This is something new, and we're working on nearest. How can we, tell the people that this is how it's going to look in the future, what you can expect. So you can see this is quite a huge landscape, how to say it, ingreep. It's a huge infrastructure thing that's lying here in the middle of the city. But it'll be nice for us to go to the rest of the world. So we just fly out again here, and then I'll take you a little bit further north to Ilulissat. That's a city, with the Jakobshavn Gletscher, the Ilulissat ice fjord. And it's a beautiful city. I have been living up here for around 3 years or something. And here you have the biggest glacier, I think, in the Western Hemisphere or something. And this is a UNESCO site area, and it's very, very beautiful city. If you want to go on holiday, sometimes you should go here. And this is in the Disco Bay. So we are, as you can see here, we are on the west coast, and on opposite me we have the Disco Island. So here, what we have been, what we see also as a potential in this work with the 3D model is now you have, as you can see here, they are also getting a new airstrip up here. So we're actually having two, what we call the Atlantic airstrips. And this will be a huge development for this relatively small city. I think there are 4,000, 5,000 people here. And we are hoping for a lot of growth, and tourism and a lot of stuff. So what we have been thinking here and working with the municipality, when we are doing the work with the 3D model here, we have some sort of arrangement with the municipality. So we actually are together in this on an agreement. So what you see here is the municipality's development plan, and we see when they are, we know they are their task now. They are having visit from Iceland, for instance, where Icelandic investors, and this is the hotel right here. But what you see is what that could be with the future when you have the airstrip out here. There will be a huge development process and a huge investments in tourism facilities, to hotels and so on. And there we see the model as a very nice tool for the municipality to attract investors, and just so that they can see, okay, we can build, how much can we actually build, and how many square meters and so on, and what are the views from the hotel, and afterwards they can go and visit. So we think this is a quite powerful tool, and also for the local people living here, that they can actually see what's going to happen with this city. That's going to be a huge development. So let's then fly to a little bit further south, and we'll go to a spot where the idea is to have a new, Greenland has a huge hydroelectric potential, because you can see the inland ice is in here, and the water will then come out into lakes, and this is like almost infinite. And I know in 100 years or maybe 200 years, maybe some of the ice will melt, but there's a huge hydroelectric potential. And so we also see that with a model, maybe we can make some sort of a better description of the potential, also for investors. And then when we talk investors here, we also actually are talking about exporting energy. There are a lot of potential in the power to X technology. So maybe if we have some hydroelectric facility here, we could export electricity in the future. So we think the 3D model will be really useful here to see, and also there can be some barriers how to get there. Is there a harbor or not, and so on. So then we also think for the now we just took like 100 kilometers away from there, but as you can see, it's a huge landscape and very beautiful. And for a lot of the Inuits, they are actually hunting, and I think the 3D models are very useful for them also to to get around and plan that there's a reindeer in here, and where can we go hunting. And we have actually attracted quite a lot of attention also from all the locals, how to because it's a huge landscape and you have to know it. And this is called the Eternal Fjord, because it's really long. You can see it continues all the way in here. But I think also for tourism, it is a quite useful tool. We're gonna camp here, or we can whatever. So yes, and the last thing, we'll go to Sisimiut. It's also a city on the west coast. And here we have a very interesting project that I'm having huge hope for the future, and it will be the last thing I will tell you here today. And this project is about place names. You know, place names is really important when you are people of nature. You know, it's actually a cultural thing. You know, what this mountain is called is quite important, and there's a lot of discussion also. You know, my grandfather called it something else, and you know, and what we have been doing with NIRS, and we have got some grant for a Nordic fund, is that we will try to use the OpenCity Planner as a tool for reporting and crowdsourcing of place names. So that's what we're gonna, you know, down here you can see our like intermediate plan for this, and you can see people will then be able to see what have been reported and how can I report what is it to report and so on, and then send it to some sort of database, and there can be some discussion about the place names. So I'll just put on with this bubble. So here you can see that we'll have the place names in here. We can also have the polygons, so people can see where are the geometry of the place names. So we are hoping for this to create, you know, a huge discussion on place names. And no, my granddad called this one something else, and so on. And actually, it's very important to have this work now before, you know, it's the elder people who knows this stuff. So this is like a cultural thing that we're hoping to, you know, announce here in the next coming year. So that was actually it. Thank you for listening, and I'll give the word to Michael.
Thanks for that, and thanks, Thomas. That's a really inspirational presentation, and it's a hard one to follow. So I really enjoyed it, and happy National Day from Ireland. I suppose this presentation is about a concept that we're developing here in Dublin Fire Brigade, and it's centered around pre-incident planning. So pre-incident planning is our way of preparing for emergency incidents, and it kind of gives information to the incident commander about the site that they're responding to. And traditionally, how we manage it is via kind of a directory structure with PowerPoint slides in it. And also, you know, you could have images, floor plans, etc. I suppose it's quite analog. It's, you know, once you produce the PowerPoint, it's out of date. You know, there's a lot of you know, bad points about it, and also trying to maintain the data, you know, maintain currency on all the laptops that are out there is quite difficult. I suppose like a lot of local authorities, we're going through a data governance journey also, and I suppose this you know, OpenCities Planner kind of allows us a lot of flexibility to kind of try and achieve these goals. And so in short, you know, we see data as an enabler. So we have the data that we're sourcing from the premises occupiers and controllers. We are and it's enabling us to do lots of things. So we have this response information, but we're also deriving strategic planning information from it as well. So for instance, where do we put a new fire station? So we're talking about data reuse. So we collect the data once and we use it often. So we use it for the response phase of an incident, and we also use it for strategic. We might use it for training needs analysis, a lot of information like that. And then to try and build data awareness as well. As you know, OpenCities Planner is a very accessible, kind of tangible, you know, tool to play around with, and we see it that it's a very good gateway to get our, I suppose, not so technical people involved with data and to give them access to it. I suppose we're lucky in that we have a partnership with Smart Dublin, which is we're part of the local authority, Dublin City Council. Smart Dublin are a very innovative you know, unit that have been set up to kind of push the smart cities objective, like a lot of cities around the world. And also we've a university partner in Dublin City University, and we've very good support from Bentley as well. So they're our industry partner in this concept. I suppose just in short, looking at the phases of data management for pre-incident planning, we have the collection of the data through digital forms or visits, fire safety management data. So our kind of our legislative or kind of regulatory section would collect a lot of data about inspections and enforcement. And then we have the management, so validating the information that comes in, enriching the, joining sources of data, linking it, updating it, securing it, and then we need to communicate. And I suppose this is where OpenCities Planner comes in. It's an amazing communication tool, and in terms of tactical, in terms of incident size up, detailed info for large incidents. So we have two phases. One is I suppose if you imagine the fire officer in the cab of the fire engine racing to the scene of an emergency, they have a couple of minutes to kind of get information. So they, with the tablet that's connected to the web, the streaming 3D model with overlaid data, it's a very accessible way to get the information. I know looking at through a lot of the OpenCities Planner material, looking at the Sydney Airport presentation, they said they saved 5,000 hours or so, I think, in one kind of planning aspect of their work. We're not talking about hours, we're talking about minutes, on the way to an incident. But those minutes could mean, possibly, hundreds of thousands of property damage, or it could mean a life lost or an unsafe condition for a firefighter. So it's time saving, but in a kind of different scale. So I suppose, one really key thing, and I think OpenCities Planner does this very well, is it allows the access to information. So you have your map template where you can find, you use a map. Everyone's familiar with the mental model of a map and finding information about it. So this allows us, if the officers are on the way to a chemical site like BOC gases, they click on the map and you get a bulletin that comes up, first of all, with very tactical information, a very quick summary of what's there, what to be aware of, and then they have access to the model itself. So this is derived from drone photogrammetry. You can see the blue polygons in the background are spatial data hosted on Amazon Web Service with a click through to get key attribute information about this building. So we have access to information about surrounding buildings. So if the fire spreads, or if we need to evacuate a school, or similar things like that. And then within the model as well, you have that kind of information is in the context of its location, which is very powerful. As I suppose, as water and firefighting go hand in hand, and I suppose it's estimated that for a 100 square meter fire, you need 450 liters per minute of water to put it out, and that's just a normal contents of a building, not taking into account chemicals or any other hazards like that. So if you're talking about a warehouse, you could be looking at 2,000 liters a minute of water needed, and it can be a very, very limiting factor. And we can put our web mapping service layer in the background from our National Water Agency, so that information is always accessible. And then what we also can present is some sites will have their own specific hydrants. So we can annotate the model with those hydrants, so all of the information is available in one place. I suppose this is fire service, like any other industry, is full of mnemonics. This is a mnemonic to help officers kind of do a scene size up. So it's called Courtois Wealth, and this is specific for building fires. If you see, we're talking about several different dimensions of the nature of a building, and what priorities might present. And we estimate, I suppose, with OpenCities Planner, we could probably knock off 70% of the information that an incident commander needs en route to a fire and to present that information. So I'm just going to run through a few of those quickly. So we think about construction. How do we assess construction of a building? So looking at this site on the quays of the River Liffey, which runs through Dublin, it's the tallest residential building in Dublin. We're not a very high-rise city yet, but certainly getting there. Probably some of the most expensive property in Europe. So we've no choice but to build up, and there's quite a lot of there's a cap has been removed in terms of building height in Dublin. So it's something we're going to see more and more. So this is called Capital Dock, and again we can get a very good kind of overview of the layout, the form, and the size and the kind of adjacency of buildings, etc. We can look at roof details, see what kind of plant is on the roof. So good, very, very good information in the event of an emergency. Another way to surface simple information is via like a street view click through. So again, just fast forward a little bit. So again, it just gives another dimension on it. We get the kind of ground level view, a little bit more high resolution than the drone imagery. But the flexibility of the platform, because it's web enabled, browser based, it really facilitates this. And then of course BIM models. So if we happen to have a BIM model for our site, we can present that in the model, or sorry, in the risk plan. And that allows, again, very, very detailed interrogation. So looking at occupancy, again, we've street view, but then we might have building data. So this is the kind of centrally hosted data, a data set that we kind of manage and curate about building risk, and it's kind of primarily used for strategic reasons. But we can surface this, click through, pull this data from Amazon Web Service, and it'll give the live. If we update this data set on a daily basis, then it obviously flows through into this model and through a live connection. Occupancy, street view, and the building data. Yeah. So the area then. So again, as we all know, we can measure within OpenCities Planner. So you can see here that this building is going to be 228 square meters. So that might allow the incident commander to say, right, we need 1,000 liters per minute of water to fight this fire successfully. Looking at the location of the fire. So again, primarily it's the incident commander, a visual view, visual 360 with his kind of subordinate officers around the building. And we also have a drone unit within Dublin Fire Brigade, and we can surface a link to this drone footage within OpenCities Planner. So again, it's just through, we can just put the link into the model to our drone feeds, that we have streaming, and this is going to be a consistent URL as such. So just clicking through there. Obviously, this is kind of a toy example, because we don't have a drone in the air right now, but you can see the benefit that's delivered. Again, looking at water, you have your various layers. You have your web mapping service. And then you have your custom points of interest. Then one thing that is interesting to have will be, where are the appliances? Where are they en route? We have GPS tracker on our appliances, so this is something we can surface through the model. That's not what you're seeing right now. It's just showing the flexibility around if we want to do a training scenario around one of our historic buildings. So this is a 14th century cathedral. We can pull in a model from SketchUp, a DAE model, place it in the map, in the model, and kind of play around with scenarios as training scenarios. Street conditions, we saw how street view can be accessed. Weather then, obviously just again a click to the web, a link through to the web. So we open the window and we have access to weather information. So, or if we have more detailed information through sensors or whatever on site, we could surface those through the model. Exposures means the kind of the surrounding buildings, and we've kind of seen how the reality model, street view, and BIM model can illustrate those things. Appliances again are the kind of fixed firefighting facilities within the building. So if there's sprinkler systems or carbon dioxide drenching systems, and then we want to look at life risk. So primarily the officer and possibly the drone feed could identify people that need to be rescued at particular locations in a building. Time is the time of day. Again, it's primarily the incident commander is going to be available there. The height of a building then is very, very important kind of fact. Again, we surface that through street view, reality model, or the building data. I suppose in summary, OpenCities Planner allows us to use a data warehouse on the cloud, and it enables kind of streamlining of the management and integration. We're going to present the information in the context of its location space. There's no need for searching, text searching, or whatever. It's there. You look in the model and you find what the risks or assets are associated with that location are. Cloud-based systems allow interfacing with third-party applications. So again, that concept of integration, really important. And then I suppose looking at the horizon, BIM, BIM maturity, we're probably not there yet in terms of our use case. But this is a tool that could facilitate that. Internet of Things, similarly, and APIs with other organizational systems. The work is ongoing, and I suppose what we want to focus on is the user experience and the UI, and just that there's consistency and excellence in that. We deliver what the incident commander needs on site, and that we do it in a very timely kind of consistent manner. We have we've plans for a citywide digital twin, so that we can try and incorporate that, or have digital twin for every location within the built up environment within the city. Again, we're looking at incorporating building internals, so just point clouds or photospheres, so that we can see the outside of the building from a drone model or digital twin, but the inside is equally as important, in terms of stairwells, firefighting lifts, riser, water supply systems within the building. And then look at the Internet of Things to consume building alarm system status. And also, if you take the example of the chemical site that was illustrated there, a live inventory to their stock of chemicals and at particular locations. So with all these things being hosted on the web, it's technically possible, but it's about the security, the governance of that kind of connection. So that's something that we're working on. That's it from me. Thanks for listening.
So we had our guest presenters, and the next topic is product news. When it comes to product news, most of it is going to be on performance, because that, as we mentioned last time, was the thing that we were focusing mostly on. We kind of halted on everything else and decided to do this in chapters and go through one through another until we kind of tackle it from all angles that we can think of. So these are all the angles that we used. I'm going to paste the link that you see up top. It's just some minimal hardware requirements for OCP. A reminder, you can of course always Google this or search it in our help section under technical requirements, but I'll also paste it in the chat just as a reminder. Okay, so back to the topics of the performance that we have been targeting. So one first thing that when it comes to performance is just advising users on how to structure the content. So that's not so much development as just being in contact with users and giving them feedback. So that's something that's on the admin to make sure that the content is configured in the best way so that the performance is smooth. The second topic is user interface. We looked into that and to see, is there anything that we can do to let the users know that some things you're waiting for something, and just to make that waiting period a bit smoother and more obvious, so that the user doesn't have to wonder what is happening or not. So we had some space to do things right in that sense. Then we have startup time. Now we enter the development section that we've been working on. We have startup time, which we wanted to tackle and make it so that the application, when you start it up, the first time that you log in, it starts showing up faster. So that's what is under startup time. Then we had loading time. That is kind of connected to startup time. It's also when you're waiting for something to load. It can also be data sets that you're loading for the first time. It can be IModels, etc. So we'll get into that as well. And then frames per second, that's basically performance. So it means that what you see on the screen in front of you, can you zoom in normally? Is it choppy? Can you rotate? Can you click on something else? Is it breaking your screen? Are you entering a blue screen of death, etc.? So that's the latest last topic that we worked on. These last three things, so startup time, loading time, frames per second, there is so much we can do in terms of development here to make it smoother and faster and better, but it also is impacted by the user's hardware. So it depends on what kind of laptop you have when you are looking at the project. If it's a you know, a laptop that doesn't have a extra graphics card, or the graphics card is not strong, or the processor is a bit weak, that will always impact the performance. So that's just a given. You of course need to have a laptop that is a certain, you know, level, that doesn't have to be gamer level, but you know, how do I say this? It should not be a bad laptop for the project to run smoothly. So connecting to this thing, that's why I'm going to link that minimum requirements, which is in the link where it's stated what are kind of the lowest things that you would have to have on your laptop for things to run smoothly. Okay, that was intro. Now, content. So I'm going to talk about each one of these and what we have done and what we usually, for this part, not what we have done, but what we suggest to the users. So we have kind of dissected this into 4 chapters that we suggest to users. Scene composition. So this is just when you have created your project or scene, what you have inside. If you put everything, all your content in one scene, and you have an enormous amount of information and data, it's naturally going to be slower. So if you can think about the scene in a way that you put yourself as an admin in the shoes of the user, and then try to figure out what are the focal points that they should focus at a time, and then structure your scene that way, then you can split it in different ways so that you can maybe enter, you know, from a portal to a project, and then have different information you show on each level. Maybe a portal is like an overall thing, and then you enter a specific building, and then that enters a project where you do that more detailed there. So having a good scene composition is very important, so that you don't just, you know, overflow everything in one place. That is, from a UX perspective, also not good, because then you're kind of losing focus and you're giving too much information to the user, and maybe you're confusing them. So scene composition, important. Map dataset configuration, very technical. You would enter data manager, and there are so many things that you can do there to make things run smoother. Just from LOD settings to so many advanced settings that can make the data set better. So usually when our user is struggling or has a data set that's very slow or heavy, we try to go into map dataset in data manager and see if there's anything that we can do here to make it lighter. IModel configuration, for our users that have iModels, there are plenty of things that can be done here to lighten out the iModel. Most of the things that are kind of crucial to this part is don't place data that's not important in your project in the iModel, because of course all these polygons add up and then make things slower. And then hierarchy configuration, that kind of ties up to the scene composition again. So it's all about, you know, having a nice hierarchy of your scene. So you don't put everything, like I said, in one place. Instead, maybe you have a start page, you have a portal, you have a scene, or from that portal several scenes, etc. Just by splitting things, you know, at step by step, you make it lighter and hopefully more focused for the user when they go through the content. Second one is user interface. So we realized that we are not showing in a very good way that something might be happening in the screen that the user should wait. So we did a bit of homework there and added a loading indicator, so that now when you enter your project and you clicked on a for example an iModel, before nothing would happen, but now you have a loading indicator telling you that this is loading, and then you know exactly when it's done. Also, error messages. Our error messages are a bit generic. Right now, when something fails, it just says it failed without too much information. So we first now gave more details to what exactly broke, although the messaging is still a bit too technical. So we're still exploring that part to see how we make it a bit more user-friendly, so that the user, when they get an error message, they know exactly either, I don't know, an IModel is missing because it has been deleted. So you would, as an admin with the error messages, know better what to do rather than, it broke and then now what? So we're still working on improving them even better, but we have done a phase 1 of at least showing the correct error message when something breaks. Then we have startup time, but before that, I was going to show the so what the loading indicators look like. So now when you click, for example, if you have an IModel showing in your screen, when you click on it, it is now the spinner that you clicked on is indicating that something is happening, but also you have a progress bar up top. Maybe we missed that. That is showing that something is showing up. So you can see that until the progress bar is fully kind of goes through the screen, you know now at least that you have to wait for something to appear. So now when the progress bar is done and the spinning and the button is done, you are now sure that the model is shown and fully loaded in the screen. Back to this slide. Okay, startup time. So what we did here, there is an IMS authentication delay. IMS is that thing that you have to log into when you come to your OpenCities Planner as an editor and sometimes as a user if the project is not public. So you have to put your credentials to log in. So that's IMS. And we noticed when we are doing some backend tracking where we noticed that there's a lot of delay from that IMS authentication. So we wanted to skim that down and remove some of the waiting that is coming from that part. Then we had code compression, and now, so this is a bit maybe too technical for me to explain, but maybe even too technical for you to also understand, but to explain it as a layman. So code compression and code optimization is something that we did in the backend to literally inspect the code and see if there's something that we can cut off and remove code that is accessed, and then if the code that exists there, can we clean it up so that it is optimized. The end result of these two things is that everything is shorter. So we noticed that there are some code that makes things delay for I don't even remember how many seconds it was, but I know that after this was done that it was 4 times faster. So that was a enormous cleanup. Now we're still talking seconds when we're talking about this, but it's still, I mean, hopefully we can get feedback from you if it's something that you notice that is way faster. But not to just, talk about feelings here, we implemented telemetry, meaning that we actually measure startup times in OCP so that we have a breakdown over basically every day how logins are tracked in each of our zones. So in the next slide here, you see we have just the project view, as an example, when a user enters a project view loading time, you can see that we had a release on May 14th. So this day, you can see beforehand what happened. There's an IMS something happening here, that orange thing that is not at all present late after that. So in some occasions, the loading time is even more than 50% faster. So yeah, the graph, I think, kind of says most about the difference before and after when it comes to the loading time. Okay, so this again is loading time is kind of connected to startup time. Startup time is that part when you log in first time, but loading time is also when the content that you have in the project starts loading. So one of the things that we worked on is iModels loading for the first time, and just in general iModels loading when you click on them later, so that they load faster on the screen than they are. So what we did here, that is kind of connected maybe to the next chapter. So I think I'll talk about the next one as well, because they're just intertwined. So the frame per second. So we had done some work on our side on how we can load the iModels in OCP as fast as possible. But this was very connected to how iModels work in general in Bentley, and that is a bit of a different team that handles performance of iModels in general. So we were in close communication with them, and we wanted to make the loading time faster, but also the frames per second of iModels, which means just the overall performance of the iModels that should have been faster. So what I'm saying is when I click on a button, I want the iModel to show faster, but when I also navigate through the project, I don't want my project to be choppy. I want everything to be super smooth. So right now, if you have multiple iModels, if they're very heavy, if you have one, it's fine. But if you have multiple iModels, they're very heavy, and then maybe your computer isn't too good, then what's going to happen is that every time you try to rotate or zoom in, zoom out, or get anywhere, it's not going to be it's not going to be a smooth performance. So we wanted to see what we can do to make it even better. So the reason why I kind of joined this is that this is something that we are still working on, and this is something that we are a bit have been reliant on that other team to do some drastic changes to how iModels work. That team has done their job, and now they had delivered their findings with us. And starting, I think last week, we started testing this on alpha. So now we have development focusing on this chapter so that we can figure out how we make both this loading time and the performance of iModels in general way faster and smoother. So that's going to take a while on our side to figure out just technically what do we want to expect and how do we want this to work, but also from an UI perspective, how do we do this? Because there's going to be some changes into how iModels are used in OCP, and just to kind of try to explain this super technical thing in a way that even I don't understand. But the way it works is that right now iModels, you get them and it's streamed and it works as you rotate, blah, blah. But what we are going to do now is we're going to kind of catch a snapshot of an iModel, like you would have a saved state of an iModel and then use that in your project. So if you do some updates or changes, they won't be visual or visible in that screenshot that you took in OCP. But what is going to be the good part about it is that you're going to kind of, with that screenshot, it's like kind of like a caching thing. The system will remember the details of the iModel, and there won't be so many waiting to kind of stream all the data every time you rotate, zoom, or change any kind of angle in OCP. So we're basically going to freeze the iModel and use it as such, and then the performance is going to just by that be faster. But we want to figure out how we want to do this in terms of settings as well, not only as in just in technology. So that's the last thing that we're focusing on, and it was the biggest thing that has been developed with two teams. But yeah, that's kind of the next thing on the plate. The thing that I've just talked about for like 5 minutes is the last thing that's called mesh exporter tiles. That's, as you can see here on the screen, the last item on the table. That is exactly what this thing is. And then last thing from product news is, I know we talked about this before, but I'm not sure if we finally mentioned that it was released. So the iModel Reposition tool has been released and is functional, and anyone can start using it. It is unfortunately not as good as our usual reposition tools, where you can just mark a location when you want your model at the end, because it requires more development. This is like a first stage. And what it does is that you can, by changing the X, Y, and Z coordinates, move the iModel around. So this is mostly helpful for if your iModel is kind of close but not exactly where you need it, then you can tweak it by coordinates. But if your iModel is still super far away, that's still doable maybe somehow. But we still recommend to have your iModels geo-referenced. But this is definitely going to help if you want to move it around and tweak it a bit. There's also a restore button in case you want to restore it to the previous coordinates. Then you click on restore, and this iModel can then be used in different projects. And every time you reposition it, it's not going to be synced with a different iModel that you're using. So even though it's coming from the same source of truth, we save the state per scene. So you can move this one around, and the other one, which comes from the same iModel, you can leave somewhere else. They're not gonna clash each other. That's all from product news on my side. Are there any questions? I guess I should read the comments to say that, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Oh, about the groups and groups. Okay, yeah, okay, this is a good thing that you mentioned, because yeah, that was released. We're still, maybe I should give us some feedback on the UI changes as well. We are still working on the UI changes that we promised from before, but it's taking in stages. So some things are released in the settings. As you can see, Craig, the group and group is released and fully functional, but the problem is that the UI is still the same. So that the changes that you can set up in Object Manager still won't be present in the UI. So we have to join these things together and release the new UI together with the settings. So until that is released, unfortunately, the settings are still not gonna work, but they are, in place. So we're doing this step by step, and hopefully soon we'll have the full implementation for you to finally enjoy the groups and groups. I know that's a very big topic for a lot of users. We have a question for the loading bar spinner. Work for all data or for only iModels? Right now, it's only for iModels, but we have been talking about doing that for the first time when you come to a project. So when all the data loads on your project for the first time, because that's usually the time, the longest waiting period when you have to, your map has to load, your data poise, So we thought that maybe we could implement as a next stage for that loading spinner to happen for when you log in first time. As per other data, we haven't at least gotten any response for other data to have such a waiting period, but we are of course open to suggestions. If there are any data sets that you are struggling with or think are opening very slowly, then that's something that we need to take into account as well. One of the questions, will OCP support direct import of other formats that KML Collada without going through Data Manager? Yeah, technically that's why we have iModels, so you can have support for almost all CAD and BIM data. If you just drag and drop them on the interface, they will be converted into iModels and appear on the screen. But then with iModels come a lot of different things that our users need to be aware of. One of them is that the iModel, as mentioned so many times before, has to be georeferenced correctly. So whatever you drag and drop on the screen, it has to be georeferenced correctly. Otherwise, you would have to reposition with our reposition tool. So if your model Revit file, for example, is close enough, then you can use our tool. But again, make sure that it's georeferenced correctly, and then it should be fine. Kenneth, is there any specific data type that you have in mind? Otherwise, I can share a link to all the data types that we support through iModels. That's a pretty long list, so that might be helpful for you too. Was there any other? Give me time to digest. Hi, Carol. No problem. Well, our webinar is almost done. Please leave yeah, Dora, you have quite a lot to share. Yeah,
oh,
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Let's have the questions written down, and I'll type as much as I can. And Dora, please continue with the presentation.
Yeah, it's fine. I just wanted to share one final update with the users. We refer to that on our latest users newsletter that we sent out beginning of June. From today, we launched a new support form. It is on the same direct support button that we have here in our OpenCities Planner editor interface, but it's just like an updated support form. It is the same process, but you have some additional fields that you need to fill in. It's not anything intimidating, so I'm just gonna quickly show you a few things that you need to take care of. You can see here we have OpenCities Planner. So once again, you click on the support button, and a new tab now it opens that you need to fill in some information. Since you log in OpenCities Planner with your IMS authentication, the first two fields that you're going to see in this new form here, don't be intimidated if you see a lot of fields. It's quite easy, honestly. So the first two fields will be automatically filled in since you log in through OpenCities Planner. But in our case, let's say that we don't have them right now. So I'm going to use Michael's name to submit a support case since he was one of our guest presenters today. And you can see that both his contact and the account, his OpenCities Planner user account will be filled in. Then you need to specify the category of request. If it is an incident, something is broken, something is not functioning, or if you want to ask us something like information, suggestion, something that you want our help in, or a suggestion. Let's say that it is an incident. The contact method. Up until today, you know that we always contacted you via email, and although there are 3 options here, we would like and strongly suggest that you still use the email option here. And then language, please just leave it in English. Priority has to do with the criticality of your issue. If it is something that needs urgent attention, or it's something that it's not it's not affecting your projects and work that much. Let's say medium. Impact, is that affecting only yourself as a user, more people within your department, or other users in various departments of your organization? I chose this. Brand, here you can see all the Bentley products that belong to your account. So here you can find OpenCities Planner from the drop-down menu, or you can simply start typing. Another product, you will only see OpenCities Planner base. It doesn't matter if you have a premium subscription, as the majority of you. There is only one product, you just select this one. That was it. And then, as always, short description, a title, and your description of your matter. This is it can be 1 word here and more explaining your situation here. And then you can add attachments like screenshots, recording, your files. And you can leave this out because this refers to resellers if they have more than 1 users. And then you simply click submit. That was it. Nothing that is more requires more work, but it's our new support form. So I think it was something that we needed to update. So as Irma mentioned before, thank you everyone for attending today's session. A recording will be available for everyone after this after the webinar session. And if you want more information about the new support form, just simply click on our blog post, and on the latest webinar that we have in June, you can find the recording that explains the whole steps. So thank you all for joining today. Have a nice summer ahead of you, and we will be in touch with everyone. Have a nice day.